Let's go to Melbourne and catch up with the latest there with Catherine Bennett, who's the Chair of Epidemiology at Deakin University. Good to talk to you again, Catherine.
Hi, Chris.
This sort of thing with a newborn baby and parents who have both vaccinated, both tested negative twice, it's overkill, isn't it, given the risk involved?
Yeah, look, we'd want to be seeing some of those exemptions, as you say, particularly tied to vaccination, where it is that balancing act between compassion and risks that can be managed. And it's a small risk, particularly if they're vaccinated. That would have actually been a great news story, to show what vaccination does, rather than actually keeping these parents away from their small baby. Just tough news.
There needs to be some reward for vaccination. I mean, Anastasia Palaszczuk suggests there's a reward because she's getting vaccinated suddenly with Pfizer so she can do it more quickly because that's her leave pass to go to Tokyo. Well, if that enables her to do some overseas travel, why isn't there some sort of advantage for Australians coming home who are vaccinated?
Look, that's absolutely right, Chris. And it's one of those things that I think will help incentivise vaccination, in the second half of the year now, where we're starting to see, the numbers pick up, but there's still people who are hesitating. But if they realise what it means, whether it's, not having to quarantine in hotels if you return to Queensland from Victoria, or whether it's that you can cross borders more freely because you're vaccinated, or you can come back from overseas and quarantine at home. All those things have been talked about, and we now have a number of people returning vaccinated. We should start to have those rules in place and be starting to action it, because that will, as you say, it will incentivise vaccination. People will know it is safe. That's why you now can make allowances for people, because their individual risk is that bit lower because of their vaccination status.
Let's drill down into what's going on in Victoria. Since the lockdown, how many cases have been detected outside of known contacts and people already being isolated?
Look, we've had a few. It's not many, but it does signal that we did have a community transmission in the Epping, Craigieburn area where the outbreak started. And that's where, we had that missing link. We had 3 weeks of transmission in the local community before we knew about the outbreak. So a little bit like Northern Beaches, where we had some people come in who were just asked to test because they were in the local shopping centre and did test positive. So there is a signal that we did have undetected cases out there, but a good response to the testing requests, and we've picked one of those up as recently as a few days ago. The rest of it, particularly this Delta variant outbreak, is sitting in quarantine. That's exactly what you want to see. We're in a really strong position, particularly now that they've found what they think, is the source case. They haven't got all the links yet, but there aren't many missing links in this one. It's probably only, again, one person. And this second Delta outbreak, the cases they're seeing are all in the close contacts. We've had widespread, large-scale testing, 10% of the Melbourne population, and we haven't seen other cases of this variant. So we're looking good to have it contained.
10%. Yeah, now you were very sceptical about the need for a lockdown in the first place and then it being extended. So given how it's been contained, how most of the cases have been within the bubble, so to speak, would you expect it to be lifted on Friday or just ease back somewhat?
Oh, absolutely. We look like we've met the goals, certainly for the first outbreak that we knew about. Now we've discovered this second outbreak that also looks to be contained. And even though these are both variants, you don't want more widespread in the community, we've certainly contained to that footprint, to those people now who are turning positive in quarantine, who haven't been infectious out in the community. So I think we've got that level of control. If another case did turn up outside quarantine, then it's certainly something that our contact tracers can get on top of. So we've brought it back to high level containment and very small risk. So we should be good, unless things radically change with tests tomorrow. We should be good for that Thursday evening relaxation of the lockdown. Probably we'll see, a stepping out rather than a full opening up. We know that that's been signalled, but also regional Victoria might have some further easing as well.
Just very briefly though, shouldn't the Victorian government and health authorities learn from this, what they should have learned from the Valentine's Day weekend? That is, they have been able to control this with their contact tracing and isolation and public messaging, and they could have done this on all the evidence without the statewide lockdown.
Look, they probably didn't need a statewide lockdown. Some of these exposure sites did happen post-lockdown, and there's no doubt that there would have been more people at those exposure sites outside of, a lockdown arrangement. That said, they can certainly go back and look at the data to see how many there actually were, and to estimate whether they would have been able to stay on top of that. So this was a bit closer. This actual lockdown did come into play for the first time. We know it's impacted the number of contacts people had. But that doesn't necessarily mean, as you say, that they couldn't have contained it with just really great contact tracing. We've seen excellent contact tracing throughout this. So that's the work to be done. We can't get through these and say, well, that's done and dusted, we won, and move on. We've got to go back and keep evaluating. And we're not seeing evidence of that yet with these circuit breakers. So this is a big one. It has been a success story, but whether we needed lockdown and which bits of the lockdown we needed and for how long, that's something else they can learn from this to take forward, and hopefully, again, mean if we ever have to use them, which is getting less and less likely with vaccination uptake. But if we do, we know exactly, when they are required.
Brilliant analysis and insight for us. Thanks again, Catherine.
Thanks, Chris.
Catherine Bennett there. I just love getting this, the detailed expert analysis from the experts we share with you. We have our strong views. We base them on the facts and love these experts sharing those facts with us. There you go. She's saying the lockdown to some degree would have aided in getting on top of this outbreak, but possibly when you go back through it, wasn't really necessary. Depends how good they are at this contact tracing. So let's hope lockdowns might never be seen again in this country. Certainly much less common, especially in Victoria. We will see.